Welcome back to Under Pressure, your favorite business building podcast for the pressure washing community. Today, we are very excited to have on Victoria Erran of Reciprocity 5, who is here to share how you can use her service to help you focus on what you do best. Victoria is an expert in this, and I had the pleasure of hearing her speak in Orlando at the IWCA PWNA event, and I'm very happy to have you on today to share a little bit of that presentation. Which, funnily enough, this presentation was fantastic. I was taking copious notes, and in the middle of the presentation, the fire alarm went off, and we all had to evacuate the building and the room we were in. And I felt terrible because you were giving a great presentation, but I remember saying to you after, please come on the podcast so that we can talk about this, because I think this is great information to get to our audience.
Aw, thank you, Jake. That was really great introduction. Yeah, when the fire alarm went off, I was like dropping some straight fire. Like
Yeah.
the whole building knew about it. And there's a lot of things I could talk about. So just curious, like it was a while ago. Was there anything that like stuck with you that you can remember, or is it
Yeah.
just okay?
So absolutely. So I have a lot of notes. We'll get into it today, but just for the
Okay.
audience to know why to
Yeah.
keep listening to this podcast, because when I went to talk to Victoria, one thing she said was, "Oh, did I get too into the statistics and the numbers and all that? Did I get too into the weeds?" And I said, "No, that's perfect. I loved it, and that's why we're having her on today, to not just talk about the ethereal, the abstract in generalizations. We're going to talk about, you know, I'd say marketing and sales and
Hmm.
putting that on autopilot, but we're going to talk about today the concrete aspects of it. All right, here's where you take action. And so that's what I was hoping to get to from your presentation.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to focus on the things that are actionable instead of just like, because obviously a lot of marketing and sales is mindset, but when it comes to actually implementing, there's a lot of little factors that people don't remember or even know about that are important to know. And the one thing I do like to kind of set the stage with is the four pillars of what you need in order to increase your chances and likelihood of success with something like this, or in general just in the home industry space. So
Hmm.
the four things are marketing, because without good marketing nobody knows you exist. Sales, because without a good sales process you cannot communicate the value you bring into the marketplace. Branding, because with good branding you can cut through the noise when
Hmm.
these types of industries are they're getting noisier and noisier every single day. And systems, so the automations, the integrations, the CRMs, the communications, all of those things, you need all four of those to be working in tandem with each other to make any sort of marketing work. And I think, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people, especially in the home service industry, have been relying for so long on simple, outdated marketing tactics that just focus on one sector instead of looking at it as a whole piece of the pie. Because everybody knows there's never just one leg to a table, right? When you make a turkey for Thanksgiving, you don't put it on a two-leg table, you put it on a four-leg table. So
Yeah,
one cannot flourish without the other. And I think that's a huge piece of what's missing in this industry so far, if that makes sense so far.
absolutely. So, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know you or hasn't heard about Reciprocity 5 yet, before we get into the weeds here, could you give us a little bit of, your background, how you got into this space, and then a little bit about Reciprocity 5 and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So, quick elevator pitch on who we are, what we do. In 2019, I actually switched from being a sustainability major to wanting to really make a huge impact in some industry. I didn't really know which one it was going to be at the time, but I knew I needed to make a big impact in real business. There's a lot of people out there, Jake, that sell the idea of things. They sell coaching, they sell
Hmm.
products online, but I wanted to have a real business that helped real people. And so, honestly, the hardest route, I also told myself I don't want to sell a product online because that's e-commerce and that's just creating more waste. I don't want to, which is fine, but I didn't want to do a whole bunch of other things that were these get rich quick schemes. So I said, what's the hardest thing I can do? Okay, well, selling services to people selling services is probably one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah.
So why don't I, if I can do that, I can do anything. So I actually started reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you need help with your marketing? This started off with like a lead model. So we're going to bring you leads, for your business, your home service business. And then from there, you're going to close them. We're going to help you streamline that close process. And then you're going to book them and grow your business. But little did we know there's a lot more involved and a lot more big problems that people are facing rather than just marketing. So I worked with my friend Ricky Schroeder with Virtuous Window Cleaning out of Arizona. Small window cleaning business, just getting off the ground. Had been in it for 8 years now, but just never could get the traction to actually grow. And really, yeah, that was pretty much it. So he took me and he's like, yes, I believe in you. We used to work in a restaurant together. Why don't we work together? So I think he gave me like $500 and I got him like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of work. And I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but we saw that something was working. We just kept leaning on that. And so I was like, okay, window cleaning, he was a window cleaner, so I didn't really know what to do there, or what that was. And I knew that like it's a very niche market. So I was like, well, I know the fastest way to get from A to B is to focus on one thing and get really good at it. So why don't I already just keep building off of what I know works? And then from there, I started reaching out to more window cleaning business owners. I got lists of people, started cold calling them, all that stuff. And then eventually I had a list of like 10 or 12 people that I was just running ads for and funneling that into a software that we have now, to help track everything. And since then, it's been like 2.5 years now, and we have so much data built up about like what works and what doesn't. I alone have spent at least $80,000 of my own money just figuring out, testing what works and what doesn't.
Wow.
And and this is not to impress you, but to express to you where our focus is,
Yeah.
right? Our focus is let's solve every problem that comes up, be the best at what we're going to do, because I'm not looking to be just like another option on the marketplace. I want to solve real problems,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of where we came from and why I'm doing this now.
I see that. And speaking of impressed, you said not to just impress me, but I was already impressed hearing your presentation, because this is something I wanted to get. We'll get into this right away, which is the way you lay it out as an exact framework as well when you're presenting this. You clearly show that you understand what works and how to get there for this specific industry, for these pressure washers and window cleaners as well.
Yeah.
With just a whole framework, and I can see that you're testing and stuff like that. So let's get into it. Let's get into it
Yeah.
so people know what we're talking about. You can share the presentation. Victoria
Yeah.
has a great presentation here for everyone to follow along. And if you're listening, I highly recommend you going over to our YouTube page, which is Under Pressure Podcast on YouTube. And you'll be able to see this as well as hear it. But if you're not viewing it now, we'll give as much description as possible so that you don't miss out too much.
Yes, I love that. I love that you liked my presentation so much and that it was really impactful. My goal going into that was, how do I impact at least one person in this room so that they leave with their life changed or with a really, really good understanding of what else there is out there.
Yeah,
Um, is can you see? Are you seeing my screen? Are you seeing that box like I was telling you about before, or is it just the screen?
I'm not seeing your screen just yet.
Oh, okay. Let me get out of here.
All right, and as Victoria opens this up, we're going to be talking about some of the marketing fundamentals, what you need to do for this to work, what makes any successful business, and how to get residential work consistently.
Hmm.
Victoria has a case study ad on there, and some great examples of what you need to do. So here we go. Here's the presentation.
Yeah, so exactly. If you can see this, this is going to be really the juice, like the guts of what we have found. And it's not just, and you can see this, right? You can see this, and then
Yes,
the little box there, you can't see that, right?
we're good to go.
Okay, perfect. So it's going to be the juice of what is needed in order to be successful or increase your chances. Typically, before we implement something like this, because we have a full system in place that we give to our partners, but in order for for this to work, we really do have to work pretty hand in hand with the company, with the business, and that means we can't work with everybody. So we can't ever be the biggest or the largest growth partner, but we can always be the best. And so, because that is the frame of where we come into the marketplace, the stuff I'm going to be sharing today is not only going to be stuff that you can't really find anywhere else, but it's also stuff that you would have to pay somebody a couple $1,000s probably to figure out. And I'm just going to give it to you because we've grown so much and we've been able to share in that success in this industry. So there's really no reason why we shouldn't be able to share it with more people. But I will say it does take a lot of hard work and dedication, and you have to be willing to put in the work into something like this. You can't just be you can't just be like, I'm going to throw $100 to an ad and see if it sticks, right? You have to be like both feet in the boat and ready to dive in. So if
Well,
that
thank
makes
you.
sense, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this today.
Yeah, no problem. So with something like this, as far as my presentation goes, this is really how we've been able to turn specific investments into $250,000. So typically, anywhere between a $10,000 investment to a $15,000 investment will get you $250,000 worth of work, which, if you do the math, is a very, very great return on investment. But keep in mind that these are not short-term clients. These are not people who you're going to see only once. And a really big part of this industry is returning and repeat customers. So
Mhm.
if you know your business model is one that you can continue to engage those customers, then you have to look at your marketing dollars in terms of what impact is this going to have on my business, not only tomorrow, but in years to come. This is what we call the customer lifetime value. Have you heard of that, Jake?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I don't think really talked about it much during my presentation, but to clarify these numbers here, this is $250,000 in client lifetime value. So this is
Mm.
not $250,000 by from bringing in one new customer, because that's not how you measure the results, or the how well a marketing campaign is working. You have to measure it based off what impact is these dollars going to have on my business. And again, if you have a recurring business model, you have to take in consideration what that's going to mean. Because if you have a customer, right, who you see them once, well, you're most likely going to see them again, especially if you have a really good first impression with them. And two, that person is going to be a walking billboard for your company. So they're going to bring in even more business. And if you don't take that into consideration, it could be really detrimental to your business and you might grow too quickly or you might not grow enough, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
we love talking about knowing your numbers on this podcast so that you can make data driven decisions because
Mm,
it is so important to know what is my client acquisition cost, and then what does that actually equal in return on investment over time so that I know what's actually the most effective. Because yeah, you're right. If you're just looking on, all right, what's the short term this year? What am I getting out of this? You might not have a clear view of your efforts and what you're putting in and getting out of it.
Definitely. And this is not to say this, like, the customer lifetime value is not to make up for a underperforming campaign. Like, I do want to be clear with that. Some marketers will tell you, oh, well, your customer lifetime value, if it's $3,000, meaning each customer is worth $3,000 to your business, then it's okay for me to charge you out the wazoo for leads that may or may not see you again. So
Yeah.
it's not to make up for that, but it is very important to take it into consideration, especially if you have a recurring business model where those customers can continue coming back. And it is really the only way to look at the effectiveness of a marketing campaign, because there's really two different things. There's two different types of customers. There's the ones that only picked you because you were convenient and cheap and you were just there, and you're probably not going to see them again, and there's probably no customer loyalty. And then there's the customers that are what we call the dream clients, who they love your work, they know who you are, they recognize your branding, and they want to just share your work with the world, and they want to see you three times a year. And so this specific marketing campaign focuses on not only acquiring them, but how do you keep them coming back using upsell tactics, using long-term communications in the front end and in the back end, and knowing your numbers as far as what that means for your business. So we'll definitely go over the numbers too, which is exciting.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so, I mean, most people that know who we are, they know that we're partners with the IWCA. But I do want to just address the elephant in the room. I think this is kind of how I phrase it too in my presentation. And the elephant in the room Oh, and Pana, we're actually in talks with right now too. The elephant in the room is that there really is a lot of noise out there about what does work and what doesn't work when it comes to social media advertising. You get a lot of
Mhm.
gurus out there, people who are saying, "Oh, you can do this, you can do that, it's going to work," but in reality, they really don't know. And what they're doing is they're going to ask you to for your money so that they can test with it, so they can figure out what that looks like. And so typically, when I tell people that we do specialize in Facebook and Instagram marketing because those are two really big platforms that we focus on, their immediate thing is, okay, so how much is this going to cost me? Is this going to actually work? And they all of the gunk that's come up from things that they've heard. I don't know if any Jake, has anybody ever shared anything with you about like their thoughts with Facebook and Instagram marketing in the home service industry specifically?
Yes, we have had a few episodes about it.
Okay. And what's the general consensus? Do they think it works? I mean, some people know that there's money to be made, but they're just like, I. It's like they're throwing money to like a furnace, and they're like, I just threw it out there, and I hoped it stuck.
So it we have had some experts on. I don't know about this show specifically. Maybe our Inspection Pro podcast show, which does the same thing in the home inspection industry. But the consensus seems to be that you need to be marketing. Whether or not you think it's throwing money into a furnace, you need to be present.
Got it, got it. Yeah, it's important to be in front of your customers so that they can actually, because they might not book, it might not book the first time, but the second or third time, once they've kind of seen your name, felt that recognition, that's usually when the real um, momentum starts building. But as most people know, we are official partners of the IWCA. I can just some quick facts about me. I can squeegee a window in less than 3 minutes, which is exciting. um, we've been featured on very well-known podcasts such as Fight Club for Business and the Into the Flow podcast with actually one of our partners, Gabe Gutierrez, very well known in the space. He kind of heads that podcast, and he helps other window pressure washers, exterior cleaners learn how to like effectively run their businesses. Partnered with four national franchises as official growth partners. Last year, we were actually able to turn a 13K investment into a quarter of a million in client revenue in less than 6 months. And then we
Wow,
also partnered with over 50 plus window and exterior cleaners from all over the nation just last year. So
great.
it's not our first rodeo, but um, again, many people they are listening right now because we speak about Facebook ads, and maybe they've tried it in the past, maybe it didn't work, or maybe it didn't work at all. It didn't work. It worked a little bit, or maybe it didn't work at all, and that's why they're here listening to this. And so, if you love the idea or you kind of hate the idea, but you know there's at least a potential cheat code in there that you can crack that'll bring you more business, that's what I want to focus on today because we've been able to kind of tune into what that cheat code is. And obviously, we're not here right now because Jake knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Victoria, I want you on a podcast." We're here right now because we were able to communicate online or through text message. I was able to look into the podcast. Everything, the presence is online now. So it just goes to show, and everybody watching this is probably going to find it based from a Facebook group or something like that. Right? So
Absolutely.
it's definitely the new age, and it's not from getting, a letter in the mail or something,
Oh yeah.
crazy like that.
Well, you can't overstate the importance of knowing where your audience or your clients are. You have to know where these people hang out so you know where to throw your money at. If you are doing ads on Twitter, but no one in your market that you're looking to do services for is on Twitter, you're not doing anything that's going to bring you value. You're not going to get any return on investment. So you have to know, all right, not only just Facebook generally, but maybe the specific area, these people, who to target. You do have to know where are my clients hanging out.
Exactly, and you have to be able to find them. So knowing where they are and be able to find them, whereas most marketing is focused on how do we become so easily found? How do we make it so it's super easy for people to find us? So when you're talking about this type of marketing, it's more of like underneath the surface level of the water. If there's an iceberg, it's underneath the surface. We're gonna go fishing for those people instead of just putting a net out and hoping that people fall into it.
Yeah.
right?
And I think that might fall under push versus pull marketing, where all right,
Mm.
if we're not just trying to pull people into a beautiful website, and we're trying to push this information out to customers, and we want to give them valuable information so that they feel trusted, and they want to sign up with us for a service, uh, you you need to, figure out where to push that to make it effective.
It's very true. It's very true. And I'm definitely going to get into that too. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing that up. I'm going to go into how you actually go about finding those people. But typically, the question I like to ask is, people listening right now, how many of you are actually paying lots of money for marketing right now? And then think there's going to be probably the most people on this podcast, or if they actually have a business, they're probably spending lots of money on marketing, right? If they're not relying on referrals and word of mouth, then the next tier is how many people are actually spending money on Facebook and Instagram ads, right? Which is going to be a smaller portion. And an even smaller portion of that is how many of you are actually seeing a profit, right? And uh, from this type of marketing, typically it's going to be a very even smaller little chunk. And from there, some of them are just not going to be able to figure it out, and it's costing them money. And this is hard-earned money, where basically they're just, if you have $100 bill in your hand, you're setting it on fire. And this is what happens every single day in this industry, because there's no guidance. It's hard to navigate. People are looking for like a straight A or B answer, black or white. And the biggest revelation, before we get into like the real details, is that there really is no right or wrong. I mean, there's a right or wrong, but there's no like black and white. Here's exactly
Yeah.
how you do
I love it.
it.
Yeah, no, I was having this conversation with a marketer early today who said we were talking about the same thing. It's not binary. There is a spectrum. I mean, and that's why you talk about doing research. That's just iteration. I mean, Victoria has done this herself to kind of figure it out for you. So I'm excited to get to that.
Yeah, exactly. So if it doesn't seem right, if you feel like you're throwing your money away, basically, just know that it's not the end of the world. There's always two sides to every coin. There's always a way out. The framework for today is that although it's really hard to spend that money correctly, the good news is that I am going to give you the exact framework and exactly what you need to make the change for your business here now today. And we're going to look at what that looks like and all of the little details that go into it. So, uh, I kind of go into in my presentation about the different things that might be familiar, but I'm just going to fast track here a bit. I'm basically just stating that a couple of key factors, right? We all know commercial is consistent, but it does take forever to pay up. We also all know that residential is very inconsistent, but it does pay the bills and it is more profitable at the end of the day. It's hard to stay busy when you're focusing residential during the slow times, typically if you're relying on a different type of marketing. Like Jake, you said push versus pull. There's two different types. So it depends on what you're relying on. And then on top of that, brick and mortars, they really did fall away. A lot of them started pivoting towards a different model of business when the pandemic hit. So now we're focusing on people are living at homes. How do we get people who are just sitting at home minding their own business? Because it's really important not to just focus on one sector. And most people, when they're building these businesses, they're just wearing too many hats. So if it feels like they're wearing too many hats, it's because they're focusing on three or four things: marketing, sales, systems, branding. Have here marketing, sales, and fulfillment, right? And these are all things that are going to come into play. What most exterior cleaners are good at is the fulfillment, making sure they have the right equipment, all of that stuff. But trying to do the marketing themselves or trying to do the sales themselves, typically it's actually costs them money, not in sort of like a time, not in just money, like actual money, but in time. A lot of people will say, okay, well, money is time, but I mean, in a way, that's actually not true. Because if Jake, I came to you and I said, okay, so if I gave you $500,000 right now, but you died a minute later, would you want to do that? You would tell me, of course not, Victoria. Why would I ever want a
Yeah, no,
$500,000 and then die?
no, thank
Right?
you.
Exactly, exactly. But contrary to that, if I said, okay, I'm gonna give you some money, but I'm gonna give you more time to accumulate that money. It's gonna be a lot different of a story because it doesn't matter how much money you have because time is ultimately the most finite resource that we have. And so the
Yeah.
more that you're able to take back your time, the better of a chance you're going to be have to actually get ahead in life because it's not
Mhm.
sale money can always be remade. Time can never be remade. Like you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
buy back time. So,
Absolutely. So I love that you talked about that trade-off because one of my favorite business books that I recently read was E-Myth, where it talks
mm,
about how, anyone in this audience who hasn't read the book, go check it out. E-Myth is
let me write that
fantastic.
down.
But
E-myth.
yeah, E-Myth.
I'm
I
gonna write it
have it
down.
up. I have it up behind me somewhere. But fantastic book. Where one of the most important things I learned from this book is that a lot of contractors get into this business because they love what they're doing. You're a technician, and that's why you get into the business because you love the technical aspect of it. You clean some windows, loved the work, and you got into the window cleaning business. You did some pressure washing, you loved it, you got into the pressure washing business. You might not be a marketing and sales expert, but now you're running a business where you have to be a marketing and sales expert if you're wearing all the hats. So that's why it's so important that you realize, hey, I can focus on what I'm good at and I don't have to do everything that takes away from that. I can find someone like Reciprocity 5 and Victoria here who can help me focus on what I do best. So that's why read that book. I love that book. E-Myth is fantastic for anyone in the audience who wants to learn how to, take their business to the next level as an entrepreneur where you're worried about some aspects of the business that you're not an expert at. This is not new. A lot of people have dealt with this, and this is a fantastic book to help you tackle that.
Mm, I like that. I wrote that one down, so I'm gonna have to read that one. I have like 4 books though I still have to get through, so it'll probably be fifth.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I could introduce you to that one because that's a good one. Oh,
Yep.
and if anyone's interested in this book related to home services, our most popular Inspection Pro episode was directly about this book. So you can go find that E-Myth featuring Sean Roseback on Inspection Pros, our other podcast.
Ooh, I love
If
it.
you don't want to read the book.
So, this is the customer journey of the buying process. Have you heard of this, Jake?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So, to sum all of this up, this is the model that you have to have in order to be successful. You have to understand it. As the value of your services go up as you climb the stairs, right? Let's say you have an introductory pricing of, let's say, window cleaning. Window cleaning is typically a little bit lower ticket than other services. So let's just say we're talking about window cleaning. That's going to be at the bottom of the stairs. As you work your way up the ladder, you're building trust with your customers so that they're willing to spend you more and more money with your business. Because at the end of the day, people are going to buy from people because that trust is built and they love the story behind your business. They love what you represent. It's not like you would never spend hundreds of dollars with somebody you never interacted with, knew about anything, you didn't do any research on them or anything like that. So most successful businesses make their money on the back end, which, for example, in the exterior cleaning space can look something like, okay, I'm going to get a window cleaning lead, get them in the door, and then I'm going to ask them questions like, have you ever considered getting your house washed before? Or when do you plan on getting, your windows cleaned next? And planting those seeds to upsell them into either a reoccurring schedule, a maintenance on autopilot program, if you will, or something along the lines of, more expensive services that typically go around like soft washing, pressure washing, things that are typically a little bit higher ticket. So that's one business model. Another business model that you can focus on is getting people in the door with house washing, pressure washing, soft washing, things like that, that you can do really quickly for a lot of money. And then you just upsell them on the smaller pieces of the puzzle. So we're already here. You're already spending $400 or $500. Why don't we go ahead and just do the windows as well? And that is the model that we're currently focusing on. We started off with marketing just window cleaning and then upselling from there. But there's a lot of different ways you can do this, lots of different businesses in the game as well. So we do pivot this strategy depending on where the business is at, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And you have to think about that when you're coming up with your marketing plan too, because you don't just want to offer any service. You want to choose the one that's not only in demand in that time, but also think about, do I want to find less customers that are more qualified with higher ticket services and upsell them, or am I in shortage and do I need to get volume, get in front of a whole bunch of customers, build up my reputation, my portfolio, my word of mouth, my referrals, and then move into the second model. And I'll go into that too and what that looks like as well.
I love it.
All right, so cold traffic versus warm. You might have remembered this, but it's basically what I call the browsers to buyers method. So when you're scrolling on, let's say, Instagram, Facebook, or any sort of social media, typically you're just going to get a bunch of browsers or people looking at pictures of cats, right? Like you're not going to get people who have the intent of buying.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, this is what we call a cold traffic audience. And imagine your car driving down the road, you see a sign, you weren't looking for a sign, you weren't looking to buy from a lawyer or an injury person or whatever the case may be. Those are typically the signs I see. I think I actually mentioned in my talk the other day, there was a sign that says your wife is hot on the side of the road. And I see it every time, like that's such good marketing because it's for an air conditioning installation company.
That's amazing.
It's so good. I'm like, oh, it's so great. So that's cold traffic. I wasn't looking for it. There it is. And I want to get them to enter into the marketplace. I want the window shoppers to become actual store shoppers. But in order for this to happen, you have to become a clerk, not a cashier. This is what I like to call it, because a clerk is somebody who helps identify exactly what you need and show you what's possible or what you provide. It's not somebody who is at the checkout line, ready to go, they know what they want, and you're just booking them. And this is why I run into so many people who say, oh, I have a 70-80% conversion rate, we're really good with sales, everybody gets on the phone with us, is ready to go. Well, that's great, but where are these people coming from? They're most likely coming from places like Google My Business, places where there's warm traffic and that search intent is there, which means those people are already halfway down the buying customer journey of the buying process. They've already seen your work. They've already done the work. They know what they want and they want to buy it. So they're at the checkout line ready to cash out. The cashier doesn't have a conversion rate. The cashier's conversion rate's like 100%. Right? Like, it's really easy to sell somebody if they're already sold on the product, if they've already identified that. So that's why it's important for people who are marketing on these platforms to realize the difference in psychology of where these people are at in that buying journey.
And why would you, why would you not leverage psychology here? Absolutely.
Exactly, right? And that's what it really comes down to, and it's something we tend to forget. And that's why marketing fundamentals is so important, a big piece of the puzzle. Because you can talk about lookalike audiences and all of these technical words and things that you can do on Facebook and Instagram, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You can't polish a turd, is what I like the kind of the metaphor. Like you can't,
That's great.
you don't have a good offer or something to put out there. You're not going to get people who are interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you get residential consistent? Well, there's really 6 things that you want to focus on as far as getting people to consistently sign up. And I will say, just for the record, I learned this from looking at the most successful people in different niches, what they were doing. But I did have some reservations about this because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I'm going to walk around a little bit because I'm going to just do a little walk here. But if you are like, wait, what was I talking about? What was I just saying? Oh, the
Your
6,
power offer.
the 6, yes, your power offer. Okay. So these are you have to have an offer in order to get people who are just scrolling to actually buy. Meaning that what we've found is that if you do not have an incentive for somebody to want to take action now, here, today, then all you're doing is getting people interested and you're just running through money. Like on Facebook or Instagram, you have to have an incentive, whether that is urgency and scarcity, whether that is actually giving them a percentage off, whether that's introductory pricing. And there's a wide range of things that we've tried. In fact, it's been one of the hardest things for me to kind of dial in what that offer looks like across the board, as far as what really, really works. And I'll give away one offer that we've worked, but I won't give away the one that we use right now just because for business purposes. Um,
Yeah.
but with that said, I'll give an outline of what it looks like, and then depending on the business model, they can come up with what they want. The main thing is that you want to have urgency, you want to have scarcity, you want to make it people centric, you want to have a clear call to action, and you also want social proof. So, with all of that said, let's just break it down really simply. So, power offer. How are we on time, by the way? Are we
Good. We have no hard stop here.
okay? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. So, power offer. This can be something where it's almost like a no-brainer. Like, why would I ever want to say no to that? Um, let's just focus on window cleaning, for example. You want to have a value stack, and that value stack means you're breaking down and compartmentalizing each and every specific piece of that service. If you remove the screens without a charge, you want to include that in your value stack. You can say something like no charge screen removal. If you are taking the screens out and washing them by hand, you want to put that in the value stack. Hand wash screens and we'll put back the screens. Or phrase it very simply, something like that. Right underneath that, you want to have like maybe a check mark or a bullet point or something where it's laying that out, everything they're getting included. We used to use the phrase no charge debris scrub because some people will charge extra for a first cleaning because sometimes the windows are super dirty, but some people don't charge for it, so you can include that in the value. If you offer a money back guarantee or a satisfaction guarantee, include that in the value stack. You can say wiping of sills, wiping of edges, um, cleaning of tracks, things like that. And at the end of it, you want to have like at least 5 bullet points of everything they're including so that the person looks at this and says, "Wow, they're giving this to me and they're doing all of this work and I'm getting a percentage off. That is awesome." Or and I'm getting I'm getting it for all this price. How amazing. Obviously, you do want to have some fine some fine print because you don't want to just be giving away business. And again, this comes back to where you're at. But let's say that you are what the industry calls a bucket bob. Do you know what a bucket bob is, Jake?
I am not too familiar with the window cleaning industry, so I do
Okay.
not.
Okay. Well, okay, no problem. So most pressure washers, typically they offer window cleaning as like a peripheral service. It's not their focus, but let's say a bucket bob, even in both industries, is typically somebody who they just kind of started, or they're somebody who kind of undercuts prices and in order to get business. Now, this is not a bad thing. Keep in mind, this is
No.
just somebody who this is the persona of somebody who is starting off and they're in shortage market, meaning that they can put their prices low because their schedule is not filled. They haven't built up that reputation. So let's say
This
you're yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think this is hilarious because Bucket Bob has an analog in the home inspection space. It's called Chuck in a Truck. So I thought that was hilarious that you brought up Bucket Bob there.
Oh, really? It's called. Let me write that down. Chuck and a truck. Oh my gosh.
Chuck in a truck or a man in a van.
Okay, so
But
these are yeah. What are those? Those are people that are kind of like just starting out, or there's
yeah, same thing, just starting out. But we don't mean to malign those at all. We just think those
no.
are hilarious terms. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're so important. But I love what you just said there about you said scarcity mindset, right? Instead of abundance mindset. Is that what you were saying? Where you going with that?
No, as far as scarcity goes, that's like saying there's a certain, like a limited amount of
Okay.
something.
Of
But
jobs in their market, that kind of thing.
oh, I see what you're saying. This shortage. So just to
Oh,
clarify,
that.
hmm yeah. So there's 3 different levels of every single marketplace. You can either be in shortage, equilibrium, or surplus. If you're in shortage, that means that you don't really have much of a customer base and you need the business in order to grow. Meaning that you
Okay.
can pretty much charge less because you have the time to go out to the job, perform the bid faster than anybody else, and you don't have people you need to pay for food on, you don't need to put too much food on the table of other people, so you can basically just charge, like, be one of the lowest charge in the market and get people that way, which is great if you're just starting out, right? But as you grow, let's say you're in equilibrium, this means I call these Squeegee Mavericks, right? This means that you've really gotten a taste for what the industry's like, and you know exactly what you need to do. Maybe you have one or two crew members. You're really starting to get momentum, and you're starting to build a real business. You have people on your schedule that are reoccurring, but you can always fit in more, and maybe you're booked out 2 or 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Then you have Squeegee Bosses, and Squeegee Bosses are the ones that we're most familiar with working with, because for the past year we really focused on how do we deliver for like the highest performing people in the industry, and recently we've been making it more accessible to others. But Squeegee Boss is somebody who they have the business that they need, but they've reached a ceiling in their business and they want to take it to the next level without spending money on the same things they did that got them to that point.
Hmm.
And so if you're talking about your power offer, let's say a bucket bob, somebody who can just, or a chuck in a truck or a man in a van, and you need business. Well, you can do something like a $99 offer, and you can run that and get a ton of people interested because it's just opening it wide to a very wide market. It's very accessible to a lot of people. You're casting a wide net, right? And inside of that wide net, you're going to get people who are your dream clients, but you're also going to get people who are not so much your dream clients. The idea here is to get you in front of as many people as possible in order for you to find those gems and take it from there.
Hmm.
Part of this process is qualifying these customers, but if you have a $99 offer, you can say, okay, this is for, let's say, 20 panes of glass. I think for at least a year, not this past year, but the year before that, that's like the whole entire offer we ran. Like, we just worked with people who were just starting out, and we ran a $99 offer, and we built our entire business model based off of volume and not so much quality.
Yeah.
So we were just getting a whole bunch of people, which it worked really well, but we wanted to be able to service people who wanted a specific type of customer, and we had to figure out how to crack that code. People say, okay, well, we want to go after a specific house, a specific demographic, whatever the case may be. Well, it's interesting because there's a fine line there. You don't want to be going just after margins if you're trying to grow. If you're just going after margins, then you are basically disqualifying most of the people that come to you and are only going to houses that are, say, $500 or more, that are quick for you to get done. Sometimes, depending on the market, that can fluctuate, but if you're going after volume and quality, then you want to be in equilibrium with the market, which means that your pricing needs to be competitive. And so we will actually, on my team, just because we've figured this out, we have to make sure whoever we partner with is in equilibrium. They're not in surplus, they're not in shortage. Surplus means you have literally no business room left, so you just refer people, like customers, to other competitors, or you refer it to a business partner, another technician that can do it for less. Um, Most businesses are in equilibrium that are growing, meaning that they have a competitive edge, and we'll actually call their competitors to see, is the person we're about to work with, is their pricing model actually fit that market? Because if you're charging way too much, we had this happen before, and you don't have any people on your books, well, then you are going after margins, and you're not going to be able to grow. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a funny thing. We always ask about pricing. We have to know that, and it's important to know where you're at. Are you a Bob, a Maverick, or a Boss? And then you craft your offer from that, right? And so typically in equilibrium markets, you want to do like a percentage off. You can do anywhere between 10 to 30% off, and just test it, see what works and in your market, whatever you feel comfortable with. But don't expect that you're going to get anybody to actually sign up if you don't have an offer that has a value stack and everything included.
Yeah, and I remember you had said something about using limited vouchers, limited time offers, and the more
Hmm.
specific you get, the better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the part that I had limiting beliefs on. I thought, okay, well, if I run an ad that says there's 17 vouchers or 22 vouchers or 43 vouchers left, and this week, right? And there's also, if book, you have to actually book in order to claim one of these vouchers. Um, and these are on a first come and first serve basis, and you put that all in the ad itself, well, you're gonna get people who see the ad multiple times, right? And then they're gonna be like, well, this is not real. Like, I've seen this ad 600 times. Like, there's no way there's
Yeah.
still 22 vouchers left. That was my thought process. But the crazy thing is that we actually haven't run into that problem yet, and we've spent
Wow.
I'm trying to think exactly what numbers we spent at this point. I think almost actually specific, like actually $250,000 in just ad spend alone this past year. We haven't run into it once.
Wow,
Isn't
that's
that crazy?
very interesting, actually. But that just goes to show, like, you can have as many assumptions as you want in marketing, but unless you go A/B test it, if you're not testing this and iterating and growing and getting better every time, you're not going to know. And that's why you're we're not all marketing experts. That's why sometimes we have to find a marketing expert. So
Exactly.
this is great. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we have to take a minute to hear a word from our sponsor,
Oh,
Pair Payments. But we'll be right back.
You certainly can't afford to give profit away for no reason. But what if I told you credit card processors may be overcharging you and robbing you of profits you've worked hard to earn? It's time to put an end to being overcharged for payment processing. It's time to take back your profits. That's why we've put together a free report, How to Avoid Being Overcharged by Your Payment Processor. Head over to takebackyourprofits.com, download the report, and put an end to being overcharged for credit card processing. You've worked hard for your sales, and you deserve to keep it. What are you waiting for? Go to takebackyourprofits.com and download your report today.
All right, welcome back to Under Pressure. We are back with Victoria from Reciprocity 5, who is now, she's given us some great information on the fundamentals of marketing and, what we should be looking at when we're marketing. So now we're going to get into a case study ad that Victoria has created that really, as we had talked about prior in the show, is going to show us, hey, this is the concrete ideas here. We're not talking in abstract thought here. This is what it looks like. So I'm excited to get into this case study ad.
yeah, for sure. So, this ad is going to pull in all the different elements that I mentioned here before: clear call to action, social proof, and on urgency, scarcity, power offer, all that stuff. So this client of ours, this is a real person and his team out of Gilbert, Arizona. And they actually ended up booking 149 jobs during June and July of 2021, which, if you're from Arizona, you know that that's monsoon season. So people are typically a little weird about the weather, and they're like, should I get my windows cleaned? Should I get my house washed? Things like that. So this was actually the craziest, absolutely insane results that we found. The offer was for what we called a full window and screen cleaning package. So for some reason, take this with a grain of salt. You can always test it out, but like, people love the word package. We've tested it against not using the term package, and they love it. So if you want to put together an offer, frame it as a package, and then just watch people be like, "Ooh, I like packages." Um,
This is actually.
right? Scarcity. So limited vouchers. We typically always stick to one number just across the board for all of our clients. Let's just say it's 22. So in your ad copy itself, at the headline, you say, 22 vouchers left. Claim one today. Its scheduled cleaning is required to claim. You can say something like, it first come first serve basis, and put that maybe towards the end of your ad copy, right? But through the whole thing, an ad copy, for those who don't know, is just the actual words, the words that are selling the customer on what it is that you have to offer. So scarcity there. So we had like 22 vouchers, very limited. Urgency, claim on a first request basis. Vouchers are going fast. You can actually put that in the actual headline, description, or body copy. And then you also want a call to action that says call now to claim. So you can have them call the business. Your call to action can be learn more if you're taking them to a funnel. I would not recommend ever bringing them to your website where there's buttons that they can click, because why would somebody that's on cold traffic ever go to your website and actually go click through it if they weren't there in the first place? Like, there's no personalization there. They're not talking to anybody, and you don't just want anybody booking with you. You want people who are actually going to be ideal clients and that you can actually help, because there's still qualifications on the exterior cleaning side. Like, you don't want to just clean anybody's home. If they have storm windows and you don't clean storm windows, then what do? You don't want them going through your funnel. You don't want them signing up, right? So you
Yeah.
have to make sure that there's that personal touch, because that is where the sale happens. It's not sending them to a link where they can maybe go through that and then actually book. It's just, we've tried it before. We've tried it with Responsibid. We've tried it with sending them to a link where they can just like book on the client's website, and each and every time it fails. And so I'm going to talk about how you can get it to where you can actually get them on the phone and get them to say, yes, I'm ready to pay you, without having to send them through one of those things. And then call now to claim is obviously the call to action.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran that for, I think, like 5 or 6 months, that same offer, same wording, same copy, same everything. So don't be afraid of people seeing it over and over again. Just put it out there. I promise you people are going to want it.
So, real quick question for you. If
Yeah.
someone has never written copy before and they're
Yeah.
just starting out and they're listening to this podcast and saying, wow, I see this case study ad, I need to do something like this. What's the best way for them to figure out the copy? Is that going to competitors in their market or something like that and seeing what words work? Or does it just come down to testing? Like, how do you, if you don't have the capability yet to hire someone to write that copy,
Yeah.
where would you start?
That's a really good question. It's actually funny you bring that up, because I think that this is the next slide there.
All right.
So campaign fundamentals. If you don't know or haven't written copy before, it's really simple. You want to follow the AIDA formula. Grab their attention. That's what the first A stands for. Build their interest. I. Create the desire. D. Persuade them to take action. A. So grabbing their attention, calling out your actual location. Let's say you live in Omaha. Hey, Omaha homeowners. Attention, Omaha homeowners. Attention, residents of Omaha. All of those things work. Typically, you want to focus on the one area that everybody's familiar with. So if you're in like a small suburb that nobody's familiar with, you don't want to use that. You want to use what everybody's familiar with in that area. Then you want to build their interest. So why should they care? One way that we've done this is by saying something like, this is, let's just say, let's use a past client. This is Johnny Fuller with Fuller Window Cleaning, right? We're adding that personal touch. We're not selling. People don't buy businesses or services, they buy people. So this is Johnny with Fuller Window Cleaning, and we are doing something absolutely insane for our community this month, or we are doing something amazing to give back to our community in the spirit of blah. You need just some reason, just like be like, oh my gosh, this guy's doing something? Like, what is he going to do? Like, I'm interested, right? Then you want to create the desire. You can do this by instilling the urgency and scarcity. So this can sound something like, this week we are giving away 22 vouchers for an exterior house wash package or soft wash. Actually, I wouldn't recommend using the term soft wash in your ads specifically, just for other, I'll get into those reasons maybe towards the end, but just use words that people are very familiar with. House wash package. And this, and then you want to write what this includes. So now that they know exactly what they're getting, and you've said there's only 17 vouchers left, here's what you'll be getting, or 22, whatever the case may be. Here's the value stack, so you list them out. You put little check marks, little emojis, list it out, so they know exactly what they're getting. All of that desire of like, ooh, this sounds great. And then at the end of that, you can put something like, you must schedule cleaning to claim this, and hurry, vouchers are going fast. And this is a great way for those to actually get, their house cleaned if they have mildew or organic growth or whatever sort of desire you want to build in there. You want to kind of build off of that pain point of what you know about your customers. This is really, the ad copy, it is important, but it's definitely not the biggest piece of the puzzle. The biggest piece of the puzzle is going to be your creatives, or the pictures and photos and videos that you use that people will actually see. And there's a lot of different ways to measure that, but that's the formula you want to follow. Really simple. We've used it just like how I just explained it over and over again. We do change our ad copy. We have one different type of ad copy for each and every month out of the year, so that if we have an underperforming campaign that's been running for too long, we could switch up the ad copy to something that's like St. Patrick's Day, right? Or like, and sometimes you can even run an offer that's based on like a holiday that happened like 3 months ago, and if it's still performing well, we'll still run it because it's still getting a low cost per lead.
Interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So
it is.
So does that answer that question a little bit about for people that maybe don't know how to write copy? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was thinking like specific words. If someone doesn't know what those buzzwords are that work,
Yeah.
would you say, hey, it's all about iteration and testing, but could someone kind of jump ahead by looking at what their competitors in their market do that's working and getting a lot of engagement?
Definitely. One thing you can do is you can go to Facebook Ads Library. Anybody can access this and actually type in your services. So let me see if I can actually share my screen for that. Give me one second here. Let's see. Stop sharing. And I'm going to share my screen here. We'll do entire screen. And then we'll go here. And let's do Facebook Ads Library. And cool thing about this is, I don't know if you knew this, Jake, but you can actually see what ads your competitor is running for any Facebook page in the world.
Wow.
So you can spy on your competitors, and this wasn't always the case, but Facebook actually introduced this a couple years back because, or Meta, I guess is what they're going by now, but it allows you to see full transparency. So let's say I'm in Facebook Ads Library. Can you see this?
Yeah.
I'm just going to click All Ads. And let's just type in like soft washing. You're going to see a lot of ads, but keep in mind that doesn't mean that each of these ads is performing well. So you want to be careful not to just copy something that you think is going to work because it just looks nice. You want to typically lean towards the ads that are running the longest. So if you see there's an ad that's been running since last year, most likely that means that that ad's performing really well. And it's actually where we got some of our ideas for our own ad copy. And you can actually filter this out too for how long it has been uh, active, or just there's a lot of different filters too. So this one
Yeah, this is
here,
fantastic. Cool.
exactly, exactly. So this person, do you notice black streaks, algae, green patches growing on your side of roof? So they're kind of hitting those pain points, which would be, if we're looking at this, grabbing their attention, or building that desire. But again, like attention's more of like if I was across the street and I was calling out somebody, like what could I say to them? So that's one thing that they're missing in this ad.
Mhm.
Although they're still asking an engaging question, I would say this is more of like the interest. Like, do you notice something? And it's like, oh, like what do I notice?
Okay.
Right?
So what would the attention grabbing thing be like? Hey, homeowner.
Mhm. Yeah, you want to call it the actual area that you're in. Like that's what's actually going to speak to your audience. You don't want to just say homeowner. You want to make sure you call out like the location, the geographical location, or if let's say you're speaking to, because our audience is exterior cleaners, so I'll actually in all of our ad copy we say, attention exterior cleaning business owners, right?
Hmm. All
That's how
right.
you want to call it out. And then this person, they have like a value stack here. So this is all of the
Yep.
things that they offer, which is really, really good. Get your free quote. So this would be sort of like a desire part of it. Sit back and relax. And what we found is that the shorter ad copy has been working a lot better recently. Back then, maybe a year or two ago, longer ad copy would work really well. But for some reason, we're just seeing that it's shorter ad copy that's typically winning the race here.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, so like maybe like this is actually pretty long to me. This one right here.
Hmm.
I would probably shorten this and keep it a little bit more succinct. But you can always use emojis too. Like this person, they use like 5 emojis, which doesn't look good at all at the end. You can kind of scatter them over in the ad copy itself. Facebook, surprisingly, right now is being really lenient with its rules. So if you're not running ads because in the past you kept getting rejected, right now they need the revenue, so they are making it a lot easier for you to get ads out there, whereas before they would reject every single ad that had an emoji in it for a while there, and it was like a Facebook bloodbath. So feel free to
Interesting.
go crazy on the emojis right now. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how you would look at your competitors and see, and on top of that, you can actually go to like let's say like Pelican Softwash, this person, and on their actual Facebook page, if I scroll down, you'll see like a page transparency. Oh, this is interesting. for some reason they don't have it.
Interesting. So one thing I'm thinking as we're looking through this and we're looking through the ad library and then going to Pelican Softwash here, how powerful could this be as an exercise to go, hey, go look at the ad library and go follow that customer path. Like go to that, find a good company, find marketing you like that fits what Victoria is talking about here. And then how good of an idea do you think it is as training to say, all right, let's go through their customer journey to see how this company who's running these great ads will run a customer through the journey. Like, do you think that's a good idea?
Got it. Like clicking on their ad here and just seeing like what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's worth doing and looking into. We actually did it. We do it when we're prospecting to see if somebody's really has something bad set up and we're just like, dang, like they need help. We'll look at it. This person's sending them to, looks like it's a page on their website that has them fill in their information, but it doesn't really give much information about the actual service or why they should book. It just kind of is like, meh, here you go ahead and book with us. And I would say that's actually probably a bit detrimental for their business, but it's not the end of the world. They're probably going to get a small handful of people that actually go put their information in here, especially since they're asking for so much information. Like they're asking for first name, last name, email, address, zip code, but this person was just like interested,
Yeah.
So, and they're using the get quote button, and typically get quote does not work very well. Learn more is actually the highest performing call to action button, and then the second best thing would be to get offer, which in that case you're sending them to a lead form on Facebook. But keep in mind that if you are sending them off of Facebook, I don't know how many people know this, but Facebook really, really likes keeping people on their platform. So if you're sending them off the platform, they're going to charge a lot more for each lead because of that. Whereas if you were to do a lead form campaign objective where it says, my objective for this campaign is lead generation, it's going to have a lead form which just stays on Facebook. It actually pulls the person's information from their page, and then it sends it to you. So you're going to get a higher volume of people, but they're not going to be as quality because it's pulling old information from Facebook rather than having them type it in. So although this person is taking them off Facebook and having them put in all the information, whoever actually does fill this out is going to be a very interested prospect. They're just missing all of the reasons why the person should desire or be interested in this service.
So to get there, you must have to empathize with the customer. You have to, or the consumer here. You're really putting yourself in their shoes and saying, all right, if I'm not from a home services point of view, but from a customer's point of view as a homeowner, how do they respond to this, right?
Exactly. Like how do we continue to keep them reading and scrolling and engaging? Instead of just being like, here, get a quote, and maybe you can say yes or no. Building off of that, like, why should they care? What's in it for them? I like to always think of it that way. Anytime you're writing ad copy or putting together a landing page, like, what do they get out of this? Why should they continue to go down your funnel? And then try to make as least friction as possible. So don't ask for anything more than their first and last name and their email and their phone. Their full name, email, phone number, that's like the only thing you should be getting in the beginning. Once you get them on the phone, that's when you can get zip code, address, everything else. Because that's when the sale is already, like, that's when they're ready to move forward with the sale. Or that's when you find out, okay, do they really want the service? And now I can just get the zip code so I can figure out what we're looking at as far as like if they're somebody I can service or not.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's like covered a lot there. That was we went deep.
Yeah, we did. I love that. This is great. This is such a powerful tool. Check out Ad Library if you haven't yet.
If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the bell so you won't miss our next episode. This episode was produced by Jake Aronson. This has been a Pair Payments production.